Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Buddy Jacob here to bring you a movie review of the 2010 remake of The Wolfman. And I've had this movie on DVD for quite a few years now. Pretty sure I got it not too far after it was released. On DVD anyway. It's really a really good movie. I really like it. And I know a review it seems kind of random now, especially when I've been doing those reviews of the Nightmare on Elm Street series. And those will be continuing, by the way. I hope to be reviewing Part 3, Dream Warriors, at some point this week. But I did watch The Wolfman again with my girlfriend on Sunday. So I thought it'd be fitting if I just got a review out on it now. So, yeah, here it is. And really, I think it's actually an underrated movie because I know it didn't do very well in the box office, which is a little bit surprising because usually it seems like people would flock a little bit more to a remake of a classic. But I guess it made earned about $789 million in the box office, and the budget was $150 million. So it didn't make back what the budget actually was for it, which is considered sort of a failure as far as the box office goes. And I'm a little shocked by that. I mean, I knew that before, but still a little bit surprising. But it doesn't mean the movie's bad, does it? Well, it wasn't really that well received by critics either. Most of them complained about, let's see, suitably grand and special effects laid in. Wolfman suffers from a suspense-deficient script and a surprising lack of genuine chills. And Roger Ebert, I forget, sorry. He praised atmospheric locations and melodramatic scope, but lamenting the CGI effects I regard as detrimental. And another critic said the Wolfman bites, but not, I think, in the way filmmakers intended. And another critic from Entertainment Weekly praised Del Toro's performance and compared it favorably to Lon Chaney Jr.'s from the 1941 original film, of course. And so yeah, the reviews were pretty much mixed to average on this. But what really surprised me is that a few years later, or at least a couple of years later, I'm not sure when this person said this. Let's see if I can find when it was posted. Okay, so 2013, according to the report I'm looking at anyway. Ronald Meyer, he's the president of Universal Studios, and he basically completely bashed the movie. Now, when I say bashed, I mean he bashed it, that's for sure. He really went at it. I'll read you a quote he gave here. He said, "One of the worst movies we ever made. The moment I saw it, I thought, what have we all done here? That movie is crappy. We all went wrong. That's one we should have smelled out a long time ago. The script never got right, the director was wrong, Benicio del Toro stunk, it all stunk." Okay, that seems like a little random, but part of me thinks that because it underperformed at the box office is why he came a few years after the fact and said, oh yeah, I didn't think it was a good idea from the start. It sounds like he's covering his own ass. Because it wasn't as successful as they were intending, at least box office wise and different things like that. It sounds like he's trying to cover his own ass and make himself seem smarter and saying, oh yeah, I never wanted to do that, we shouldn't have done that. But yeah, I don't really know what to make of him besides that. Really, though, I imagine if this movie like did well in the box office, his comments would have been almost the exact opposite. So, but really, this movie does not deserve all the hate it gets. I mean, like, it seems like the fans, at least recently that I've looked at, they've warmed up to it a little bit more. Because I've seen quite a few people saying how much they liked it in some of the YouTube videos of the movie. And so I think feeling for it's gotten better. But really, all the criticism we got from the critics originally, and even the president of Universal Studios, I think, was unwarranted in what they said about it. Now, most of the scares in this are jump scares, I'll admit. But I do think it really does have a good tone to it. It's like it has this sort of gothic, type of dark, like I read earlier in one of the quotes, melodramatic. Is that what it was? But you know what I mean. Like, it had a really nice tone and atmosphere to it that I thought was very fitting. And okay, there's the phone, but someone else will hopefully answer that. And some people thought that, I read in other websites that some people thought the acting was flawed because it was rushed and they had to rewrite it a few times over the years before they finally got to a point where they wanted to release it. And apparently the original release is planned for around like 2008, so yeah, it was definitely having some troubles and complications and things like that. But some people thought that affected the acting in the movie a little bit. Again, I don't know that for sure because of course I didn't work on the movie, so I don't really know what it was like on set with everyone. But as far as what I can assess from watching the movie as a fan, I thought it was acted fine. I mean, let's see, Benicio del Toro. Well, I think he was a little bit dull and bland in certain parts of it, or some parts of the movie. I definitely don't agree with the president of Universal Studios saying he stunk. No, I don't think I'd quite go that far. I mean, he was good in certain parts, like, you can in particular remember the scene where he's locked up in the asylum, and, the doctor has him locked up for that demonstration, to see, it's all in his head, it's all psychological. Before he turns into a werewolf and, he starts slaughtering everyone in the room and escapes into the city at night. Last scene, I thought, he says, "You moron, I will kill all of you." That scene, I thought he did really well in that scene. And the rest of the movie, he did come off a little bit bland and dull for some of it, but I definitely don't think he stunk for any of it. I thought he was decent at least. Decent at worst, solid at best. So I don't really think he was a problem, necessarily. I definitely want to criticize him as much as Myers and others have. And Anthony Hopkins, you can't really complain about him in any movie, really. He's just a very consistent actor, a very reliable actor. And, I actually like the twist with his character, Sir John Talbot, in the movie. And we'll get some more of that in a few minutes, though. Emily Blunt as Gwen, she does what she's supposed to do. I mean, she doesn't blow you away, but she plays her role well, I'll give her that. She shows the emotion, and you sort of like buy her wanting to help Lawrence as much as she can. So she does a good job of that, I'll give her that. Hugo Weaving as the inspector. Again, he's serviceable. He does what he has to do. And he's good for your character who knows who you figure out, who you think's gonna, put it all together, be the outside source. I actually read the director or the writer, someone, they had him, be killed off earlier in the movie. But, they liked Hugo Weaving's portrayal of the character so much that they wrote him in to the end with the ending we got. So, I'd say Hugo Weaving did pretty well. So that kind of covers the acting. And the story, it's a remake, of course, from the 1941 classic. I'm about to say something very big here, that I actually prefer this remake version to the original 1941 version. Yes, of course, the special effects help. I will not deny that. Because, of course, famous makeup artist Rick Baker, I think his name is. I really hope I'm not wrong there. I'll check to be sure. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, Rick Baker. Okay. Okay, I thought it was right. I just don't want to be wrong there for sure. He has a lot of experience. He's done other werewolf movies and quite a few other movies like Avatar, even, and different things like that. And he even cameoed on The Strain this season. If you remember that, back to the Creatures of the Night episode, he played one of the first guys killed at that store they were holed up in. But he does a great job, and he actually won an Academy Award for what he did in this movie. And I thought the werewolf makeup and the design and the effects for the Wolfman were great. I mean, just, let's see, I have a figure from Mezco based off of the movie right here. And Mezco's not the most accurate. They tend to stylize their figures a little bit more than, say, a company like NECA or something. But, it's still a decent figure. I'm not going to talk about the figure a lot right now, but, actually the face could be a little bit more accurate to the movie, but it's still pretty decent. But if you've seen the movie, you know what the design looks like and stuff, and I think it's really good. Really good. And it's probably the best Wolfman or werewolf design I've seen, really. And the effects, some critics at least complain about the effects when the werewolf's running on all fours. I think it looks cool. Especially the far off shots, I really think it's cool when Lawrence first visits that gypsy camp to investigate what happened to, Ben, his brother. And, once the other werewolf arrives and, starts slaughtering people, we see a shot of, a boy running off. And we see, a shot of, the werewolf, running, just behind him, some 50, 100 feet away. And, in the woods, lit up by the moon with the silhouettes and stuff. And you see him, running all fours in the same direction. It looks really good. And I think people want to be complaining more about the shots of, the Lawrence Wolfman running, the close-ups. I think it looks okay. I mean, it's not, noticeably terrible. But, as far as the story goes in the movie, it's nothing complicated, but it is actually a tad bit more interesting than the original plot to the original 1941 movie. Of course, it starts off with a kill scene of Ben Talbot. He's basically killed in the woods by the unknown werewolf. And Lawrence Talbot, Benicio del Toro's character, he's basically a Shakespearean actor. Apparently he's supposed to be pretty famous. They show a couple more scenes of him in the theater area in the unrated version. I watched the theatrical version with my girlfriend because, we were kind of short on time, so I didn't want to make it 17 minutes longer, and, she's kind of gun shy with the whole, horror thing anyway, so I didn't want to gross her out any more than the movie already would. But at least in the unrated version, they kind of showed a few more scenes of Lawrence around the theater area. And, of course, after hearing of his brother's death, Lawrence returns to the family estate, Blackmore. And, with his estranged father, Anthony Hopkins' character, Sir John Talbot. And, he basically finds out that Ben's body had already been discovered, mutilated. And, of course, you see scenes of the townspeople wondering what did it, whether it was a beast of some kind or a madman who cut the body up afterwards to make it look like it was a beast. But, of course, there's that one older guy in the bar, the saloon, or whatever you want to call it, or the pub, who happens to, know the story about what's really going on. And, yeah, it's a pretty eerie story. If you guys know what I'm talking about, he talks about his casting bullets on a full moon and never leaving the house after that. And well, what makes this story and the remake better than the original is the fact that they really give Sir John more of a role in the movie, because we see flashbacks of Lawrence, and the tragedy that was really the curse that surrounds this house, because we see that Lawrence and Sir John had originally thought that their mother and Sir John's wife had committed suicide, because we see a flashback of Lawrence waking up at night and finding his mother with like a razor, and she had apparently cut herself and killed herself, let herself out basically, and so there's definitely a tone that was set after that, no question. And then apparently Lawrence had spent like a time at the asylum that his father put him in for a year before he shipped off to his other relatives, and he hasn't seen his father since. So yeah, but we discover it's so much more than that. Let's see, I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything else before I get into that. But yeah, if you guys are watching this video, I'm assuming you've seen the movie, so yeah, there are spoilers. But eventually we find out that it was Sir John who had killed their mother all those years ago when Lawrence and Ben were children. And parents in the hallway, one of the benefits of still being in high school. By benefits, I mean cons. But anyway, we do find out that Sir John had killed their mother all those years ago, and most likely he was in werewolf form when he did it, so he might not have had full control. But we see him now, and as he talks to Lawrence, when of course Lawrence is bitten when he goes into that gypsy camp, that scene I just described. Of course he didn't know who the werewolf was at that point, but when Sir John visits Lawrence in that asylum after Lawrence had been put through like that ice water therapy, I don't know what it was exactly, I don't know what to call it, but he is submerged in that over and over. Sir John visits him, and he basically reveals to Lawrence that he had killed their mother, and he was also the werewolf responsible for killing Ben at the beginning of the movie as well, which kind of set off all these events. So, and he also wanted to keep one around, of course, because he was probably planning to kill her as well. Now, you could say if he was in werewolf form, you could say, oh yeah, he never had full control, which is true. But he had also, in human form, taken the powder out of his manservant Sing's, silver bullets and guns. So if Singh ever tried to stop him or fire at him, it wouldn't work. And a lot of nights he would keep himself locked up in this cave they have near their estate, on their estate at least, and but this time he let himself out, or he knocks Singh out, because he basically explains to Lawrence that he loves the glory of life and wants to keep it, basically. So yeah, he's really definitely a bad character, in and out of werewolf form. So I think that's a really good twist in the movie. I mean, it's not like I want to say it's completely unexpected when you're actually watching the movie, because it's kind of obvious that there's something a little bit sketchy about the father pretty early on, especially when Lawrence has his first transformation, and he follows his father to that cave, and you see his father as like a ritual type setup for the mother, and he has his hair slicked back, and you can tell there's this chair with straps and stuff that he probably uses, so it's fairly obvious early on there's something off about him, especially when his eyes glow as he backs away into the dark. But still, I think it was a good way to add a layer to the story, making it sort of like a revenge type of thing, for years of what his father had been hiding from the rest of the family. And like I said, that scene where Lawrence escapes from the asylum is great. He slaughters the doctor and a few more people inside before he escapes into London, starts running around the city, slaughtering people left and right, leaping at them, taking out their heads, and it's really cool. Oh, yeah, it's also implied, well, I'm reading right here, it was implied that the conversation that Sir John has become enamored of Gwen and resented the fact that she would leave with Ben after their wedding. The wolf inside him saw Ben as competition for her affections, which is something he has come to accept as having no control over. Yeah. And so he thought Lawrence never escaped the asylum, but he never I guess he never figured that when he turned into a werewolf he would escape, which kind of seems likely if they didn't realize what was going on. But that's an interesting perspective or angle to the story as well. Sir John developing something for Gwen, and given the nature of his character, it'd be possible that he would try to get to her behind Ben's back or something too if he had to. But yeah, and it leads to a great final confrontation between Lawrence and Sir John. And of course we get a couple scenes with Maleva, another character from the original movie. She isn't shown quite as much in this one, but she serves her purpose, by asking Gwen when she comes to her for help, if she, if there's like a cure, a way to save Lawrence, or, but basically Maleva tells her that she has to do what needs to be done, and will you condemn him or set him free? Do you know what that means? And basically condemn means, will you try to lock him up or keep him contained like Sir John was doing, or will you try to set him free, which is kill him basically for mercy, out of mercy. So Gwen understands what needs to be done after that, although she's still hopeful Lawrence can be saved somehow. So after Lawrence escapes, he manages to make his way back to the manor, Talbot Hall. And of course he finds Sing's mutilated body. Sir John, of course, had finally killed him. And he takes Sing's bullets, but of course we find out later that Sir John had taken the powder out of the weapons and stuff like that. And we get a really good final confrontation between Lawrence and Sir John. Sir John, basically is completely open with Lawrence by everything he's done, and he beats Lawrence around a little bit. But the full moon comes out, and it's really, really cool. Lawrence finally gets a little bit of an upper hand, and he starts choking his father, but then his father starts turning into a werewolf, and he's knocked, across the room. Of course, when Lawrence comes back up, he digs his claws into the piano and stands up as the werewolf. It's really, really a badass scene. And I think the makeup for Lawrence's Wolfman was meant to be a little bit more intimidating. At least to me, it looked a little bit scarier, a little bit more cool, I guess you could say, too. But granted, Sir John's werewolf, it was meant to be older and stuff like that too as well, but I really like how Lawrence's Wolfman looks in the movie. So, it leads to a great werewolf fight, which we never had in the original, which adds another layer of enjoyment to it. And the werewolf fight I actually think is very entertaining. It's really cool. Sir John controls most of the fight, but you see really the mobility of both of them is really interesting. How they move and stuff like that and pounce on each other and dig their claws and teeth into each other. It's pretty cool, pretty brutal. And Sir John appears to have the advantage until he leaps on Lawrence again, and Lawrence manages to kick him into the fireplace, which doesn't kill him. But right after that, Lawrence, basically takes Sir John's head off, and we see Sir John's decapitated head moving around. Not really Hannibal-esque, but I just thought of that. And so basically, before we get to the ending, we've seen the whole thing come full circle with Lawrence finally getting vengeance, even in his werewolf form, for what his father had done to his mother and his brother and what he's been hiding all these years and stuff like that. So it's really cool to see at least his story was wrapped up before what happens in the ending. Gwen shows up, and so does the inspector. And, it's implied that the inspector had previously worked on the Jack Ripper case, by the way. And he tries to shoot Lawrence with the silver bullet, but Gwen, deflects it, or pushes the gun so it misses Lawrence. And Lawrence actually bites the inspector, and is about to go after him until Gwen runs off, and he chooses to go after her rather than finish the inspector off and kill him. The Inspector gives a brief fight, but once he's been in the shoulder or the neck area, he's kind of too weak to do that. I think it's more in the shoulder area. And of course, Lawrence, as the Wolfman chases after Gwen, and we get a pretty good chase scene. I really like the movie. I really like that. The scenery, it looks really nice. It's really like gothic and dark and gloomy. I like it a lot. And we basically see Lawrence corner her, by the river and the waterfall and stuff like that where they were showing themselves at earlier. And, Gwen basically pleads with Lawrence a few more times, Lawrence, you know me, it's Gwen. It's Gwen. It's not quite that comical, but it's actually really effective. Because we actually see Lawrence, even the Wolfman form, start to calm down a little bit. He's like groaning, and you really feel like there's like a flicker of humanity that's still in him, even as the Wolfman. Until he hears the mob approaching, and he riles them up again, gets them all too excited once again, and that's when Gwen realizes she has to take advantage, and she grabs the gun. And just before Lawrence is able to react and bite her, she shoots him with a silver bullet and finally kills him. Which is, we'll get to that in a second, and of course, Wolfman reverts back to Lawrence, and in his human form, he thanks Gwen, it was what needed to be done. So yeah, we kind of figured Lawrence was going to have to die at the end of it, especially a few years prior to the whole shared monster universe thing. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, I'm glad Lawrence's character was able to come full circle and do what he wanted to do before all that happened, before he died. So I didn't really have any complaints about Lawrence dying right there, other than it being, sad. It was kind of sad. And of course, the Inspector and the rest of the mob show up, and we see Inspector clenching his bite wound, and he looks up. We hear some narration from Gwen before we hear the werewolf howl again. And it's presumed to be Aberlini, the Inspector. So, the ending was left kind of open. I believe they could have done a sequel if they chose to, but the movie probably had to be a bit more critically and, generally successful. But it's a shame, but I was fine where they left the story, really. Now, there were 2 alternate endings to the movie, which you can find on the Blu-ray version, I believe. I don't have the Blu-ray version, I just have the regular unrated DVD version. That comes with the theatrical version as well. But the 2 alternate endings were that Lawrence just bites Gwen and kills her, and he looks at the screen and it cuts to black, that's it. And then the other alternate ending is where he bites Gwen, but Gwen still manages to shoot him as it's happening, killing Lawrence, but she's bitten and presumably turns eventually as well. I believe the ending they went with, the theatrical ending, was the ending they went with for the final version was probably the best. Because, I like the Lawrence living at the end, even if it means years and years of torment of what he's done and stuff like that. Of course I like the monster living, being the horror fan that I am. But I felt like that didn't make for quite as good of a story, or quite as good of an end to the story. And Gwen being infected and turning eventually, I don't think so. I don't think they needed that. So I'm glad they went with the ending they did. The ending was a bit predictable, though, I will say that. But it was still fairly effective for what it was, I think. So, yeah. Yeah, my review ran a little bit longer than I planned on. But I really think this is a really good movie. It definitely doesn't deserve all the hate it gets. It's actually could be my favorite werewolf movie of all time, really. Along with the Ginger Snaps trilogy. But, it's hard to really compare Ginger Snaps to a movie like this. They're about similar things, but yeah, they're so different in the way they portray them. So, The Wolfman and the Ginger Snaps movies are my favorite werewolf movies of all time by far. And yeah, I definitely recommend checking this one out and forming your own opinion. And if you have a different opinion or a similar one and just want to discuss it, feel free to leave a comment. And yeah, it's a shame that they're going to be rebooting The Wolfman in a couple of years to be a part of that shared monster universe. But I'm guessing they probably want to make him more over the top and hopefully have the movie be more successful. But I think this is a really good version of it. I really liked how this movie was done. I mean, I'll still watch to see what they do in the new reboot again, but I think this is a really good movie. Really, really underrated. I really like it a lot. So yeah, that's it for this review. I'll catch you guys later, and peace. The beast will have its day. I gotta do this, of course.